Fitzgerald of the School Board for Metro Nashville Public Schools. We thank you for joining us tonight. And I'm going to actually ask Mr. Stephen Henry if he will come up and lead us in the pledge.
To the flag one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, we have a quorum. We're going to go ahead and start with announcements, and we will start, Dr. Brannon, we'll start at on your end this evening. All right, Ms. Spearing?
Yes, thank you. I want to give notice that we will have a community meeting next Tuesday, January the 21st, at Madison Middle School from 4:30 to 6. And it's about the culture of the schools. Teachers have been through a great deal over the past few years, incessant high-stakes testing, a questionable evaluation system, basing salary and licensure on students' TVAS scores, and a system where over 72% of our students live in poverty are just a few reasons for low teacher morale. School culture impacts students' ability to learn and teachers' capacity to cultivate a positive climate for successful learning experiences. Parents, teachers, and community have concerns about our educational system, and they often have excellent ideas for solving some of these problems plaguing our schools. So we're hoping that we will have a full house next Tuesday for this community meeting. I want to say just a quick congratulations to Dr. Jay Steele and also Dr. Register and all the high school principals and community partners concerning the national recognition we received this past week from the President. In his remarks on Thursday, President Obama highlighted communities that have collectively taken on big social challenges. About Nashville Public Schools, he said, and I quote, "They designed high schools and boasted graduation rates by 20%. We have come a long way in the last few years, and I invite our viewing public to take a tour of our high schools and to see how much and how exciting these high schools are as places of learning." Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Spearing. Ms. Kim? Ms. Shepherd?
I do. I have a couple. I would like to say a huge thank you to Deloitte, who is hosting the FASFA night tonight. At McGavick High School, they do a really good job in getting a lot of volunteers from both Deloitte and the community through the Donaldson Hermitage Chamber of Commerce. This is the first one I've missed in about 5 years, but I thought I should be here instead of there. Tomorrow night, Wednesday night, will be the first Tennessee Achieves meeting at McGavick High School. I'll be meeting with 4 young ladies that I've been assigned to mentor, and I'm really looking forward to meeting them. And I would like to say congratulations to my colleague, Amy Frog, for being named School Board Member of the Year by the publication Schools Matter. And I might also add that Malala Yousafzai won the Most Courageous Student Award. If you're not aware of Malala's story, it's a very compelling story. She is a very courageous young lady. So there are a lot of information about her on YouTube and Google, so I would encourage you to look her up. She's an amazing young lady. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shepherd. Mr. Pinkston?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to echo Ms. Spearing's comments congratulating Dr. Register, Dr. Steele, and the rest of the high school team on getting the recognition that they got last week. It's not every day you get a shout out from the East Room of the White House, so very cool indeed. Second, also wanted to announce that Chairwoman Mays and I will be hosting a community meeting on Saturday, this upcoming Saturday, January 18th at 10 a.m. To provide the Percy Priest Lake area and the Upper Antioch community with an update on the new Antioch Cluster Elementary School that's planned in that area. A new school will open in fall 2015, serving Upper Antioch and the Percy Priest Lake area. We will be joined by MNPS management and staff to unveil the preliminary site plan for that project and engage in a community conversation about the project. Again, Saturday, January 18th at 10 a.m. The location will be Camp Widgiewagon, YMCA's Camp Widgewagon, the Turner Dining Hall. The address is 3088 Smith Springs Road. We'll see you on Saturday at 10 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pinkston. Mr. Hayes? Ms. Frogue?
Legislative session is. I anticipate there's going to be a lot of lively debate around several education topics, including Common Core, standardized testing, teacher issues such as licensure and evaluations, and then, of course, we have the oldies but goodies, the vouchers and charter authorizer, which are no doubt going to arise. So the next few months, we should be in for a pretty big ride.
Thank you, Ms. Frogue. And I just have a couple of announcements. Annual board retreat will be January 24th and 25th at Fall Creek Falls. We will begin promptly at 2 p.m. on the 24th, so please make sure you arrive in time for that to begin. The next board work session will be on January 28th. Prior to that, we will have a director's evaluation meeting at 4 p.m. TSBA Day on the Hill is February 18th. If you plan on attending, please let Ms. Bobo know so she can get you registered. Registration needs to be completed by February 4th. Also, MNPS is having a district-wide launch of the program that seeks to strategically engage dads in schools while providing additional mentors and eyes and ears on our campuses. Watchdogs, or dads of great students, will start in Nashville in 31 schools this month. The launch is January 16th at 7 p.m. at Bridgestone Arena, and we're happy to announce that now 40 schools have signed up. I'm pretty excited that one of those schools is one of my schools, Thomas Edison Elementary, and they're very excited about the program. So thank you all for all that you continue to do. And just one more time, we've got to say it was pretty cool to get a shout out from the president. Everywhere I've gone, I've told everybody about that. They're kind of sick of me talking about it now, but I'm pretty excited about our high school transformation programs. They are really working, and you guys have done a great job, so thank you for all you've done. And so we will move ahead. Ms. Bowling, do you have a report for us tonight? No report? You just want to hang out with us? That's great. It's fine. We do not have any items under awards and recognition, so we'll move on to public participation. The board will hear from those persons who have requested to appear at this board meeting. In the interest of time, speakers are requested to limit remarks to 3 minutes or less. Comments will be timed. Board members will not immediately respond to speakers during the public comment period, but may follow up after the meeting. Kathy Smith.
Good evening. I'm Kathy Smith. I'm the current chair of the Nashville Central High School Alumni Association. On behalf of the association and the executive board, I would like to take the opportunity to thank you all for allowing us to utilize the only remaining building on our high school campus. Central High School was created by the Davidson County Board of Education, or school board, and opened in a small shared space in 1914. Our first graduating class was the spring of 1918 with 19 graduates receiving a diploma. Among those, further education in the years that followed were great contributing citizens to Nashville-Davidson County. Jack Norman Sr., who was a prominent lawyer in Nashville, Robert Feeney, Secretary-Treasurer of the Nashville Banner, and the co-founder of our association, the first mayor of Nashville, of Metropolitan Nashville, is Mayor Beverly Briley. The last City of Nashville mayor was Ben West. The Alumni Association was formed in 1958 to provide fellowships to graduates and scholarships to graduating seniors of Central and now their descendants. We have provided over $670,000 in scholarship funds to deserving high school graduates who are either graduates of Central or descendants. We also provide fellowship for graduates of Central High School. We meet collectively in May every year to award scholarships to the recipients. The fabric that binds us together is our alumni building and hundreds of pieces of memorabilia that we house within. While improvements have been made to the building, we currently have a major problem with a roof leak. The leak has now caused a portion of the floor above us to rot. Patching the roof has not worked, and we house delicate memorabilia in that school building, such as large graduating class pictures from the very first graduating class, and class annuals, newspapers, sports memorabilia, band uniforms, and other items that have been donated by our various graduates and their families. We would like to ask you to give great consideration to re-roofing the building before further damage is done. We would like each of you to possibly take a personal tour.
Ms. Smith, I will allow you another minute since you're the only one on our agenda tonight to finish your statement.
Okay. You may visit our website at www.nashvillecentral.org and call David Waddy at 973-2437 to schedule a personal tour of the building if you'd like. Thank you for your time and the consideration.
Thank you, ma'am. We will move into governance issues, action items, consent agenda. Well, let's stop here. Any items that need to be removed from consent?
Yes.
Rogue.
I'd like to have the Teach for America contract removed for discussion.
Ms. Spearing?
The Pearson contract for discussion.
Thank you. Ms. Shepherd?
The consent agenda is as read. 1A, approval of minutes, 12/10/13, regular meeting. B, recommended award of contract, master planning for Martin Luther King Jr. Magnet School renovations, Bar Askew Agriculture, PLLC, MBOE 800-497.14.2A. C, awarding of bids and contracts. 1, American Education Solutions, Inc. 2, BAC Paving Company, Inc. 3, Bobcat of Nashville. Number 6, Tennessee Department of Education. 7, University of Cambridge International Examinations. 8, University of Cambridge International Examinations. D, recommended approval of K through 12 Social Studies Textbook Adoption Committee. E, recommended approval of request for compulsory attendance waiver. F, recommended approval of legal settlement case number C-31275 for $8,000. And G, recommended approval of legal settlement case number L-15538 for $28,000. Madam Chair, I recommend that we approve the agenda as consent agenda as read.
Is there a second? Yes, ma'am?
1A, pardon me, my bad.
All right. We have a motion for approval and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now we will go back to the two items that have been removed for discussion. Ms. Spearing, the Pearson contract.
Okay. Yes. First of all, I wanted to thank Jay Steele and Dottie Critchlow and the entire committee who served to select the universal screener. I appreciated the opportunity to raise questions and concerns from my own experiences and those that I represent from parents and educators. After 2 hours of discussion last week with the entire committee, I have more clarity, and I want to give a brief summary of the assurances I have received from Jay Steele in regard to the Pearson contract. As you may remember, there's a sense of urgency concerning the selection of the screener. By state mandate, the screener must be in place by 2014-2015 school year to meet state sanctions. The goal is for all training concerning the screener to be completed by August the 1st of this year, and Pearson's training will be completed by May. After working with the committee and Jay Steele, the following assurances have been made. Nonsense words will be eliminated from the universal screener. We know as reading specialists that there is no place for nonsense and lack of meaning in the process of reading. The decision to eliminate the nonsense assessment does not affect the validity of the screener, and this has been confirmed by Pearson. Ameswell will not be used as an option for 15% of the teacher evaluation. When a screener is given high stakes, unproductive behaviors can occur, such as teaching nonsense words or instructing students to read it fast. Such behaviors can be counterproductive to literacy attainment. Although the length of the contract is 5 years, we can break that contract with only a 30-day termination for convenience notice to Pearson. After 6 months of piloting AimsWeb, the instrument will be evaluated, and if teachers and parents feel that it is not meeting the needs of students or that it is in some way counterproductive to learning to read, MNPS may select a new committee which will be inclusive of current classroom teachers and principals who may then select a new screener. I feel certain that the committee and the administrators in Metro Nashville Public Schools understand the need to include voices of active educators on all future committees. Dr. Jay Steele has assured me that any future RFP committees will be comprised of teachers, principals, and district staff when selecting products that support instruction or assessments. I appreciate the response that our district has made to the concerns voiced by parents and teachers in this regard. And with these assurances in place, I do recommend that we approve the Pearson contract.
We have a recommendation for approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Ms. Fearing. Ms. Frogue.
I have some questions about the Teach for America contract, and I first want to say, on behalf of my colleague, Ms. Kim, and all of our hardworking TFA teachers, I hope that this is not construed as any sort of negative reflection on some of the good work that's being done by TFA here. And I've been in some of these classrooms, and I've seen some great things going on. But my first question, I guess, is has to do with the cost of the program. So it looks like, and so please someone correct me if I'm wrong in reading this contract, but it appears to be for a 3-year term, we're going to be paying $2.25 million for the contract, and that is for around 600 teachers. I was hoping someone could help answer a few questions. Are there about...
Who do we have available to answer questions on this?
We have Katie Core and Susan Thompson who can respond specifically to this. And Shereen Douglas, right.
So the contract is for $750,000 annually for 3 years to provide up to 100 teachers per year. So that's what we would be paying for, the selection and recruitment of up to 100 teachers annually for 3 years.
Okay, but it also covers development as well,
Yes.
right? I'm sorry.
The ongoing
development
support and development is integral to their model and has proven to be very successful in our district. So
And we have a total of how many TFA teachers?
about 300.
300?
Total in the district currently.
Around 300, are we planning within this, so we're going to, that's where I'm getting 600.
Yeah.
Each year, we're going to add 300 under this contract, and then, okay.
Right.
Our cost per teacher is?
$5,000 per teacher per year. So we pay for 2 years of the teacher, so $10,000 total per teacher.
1,000 over 2 years per teacher. Okay. And do we know how much it costs the state? I mean, the state also has a contract with TFA, right?
I have no idea. It doesn't affect our district at all, so I have no idea what
Okay.
that contract looks like.
I should have probably tried to look that up, because there's an additional cost there. And so
Costs, though, do not affect us at all. So
okay.
whatever their work
That is
is
just
with
to get it
TFA
to Tennessee.
has nothing
That
to do
is
with the
their-
teachers in our district. Yeah.
Okay. And then, because where I'm getting, okay, so let me jump to my next question. So do we have an average time that our TFA teachers stay in the district?
Yeah, so their retention rate from first year to second year is actually higher than a non-TFA teacher. So we have 80% retention from first year to second year, which is what we would hope for. That beats our average retention rate.
Okay.
Second to third year is not as strong, and they are roughly 65%, somewhere in there. We're looking to increase that, and we want to increase that. That's an area that we need to work on, but we're very pleased with the first to second year retention rate, and then we want to increase the second to third.
So this is what I'm trying to compare. So what I'm trying to figure out is whether there is, what I would like to see is that we do a cost-benefit analysis on these kinds of programs. So are we getting a good return for our investment? Are the teachers staying long enough for us to to get a benefit out of the investment we've put in them? And I know we're not considering the state, but if we're looking at putting, I really wish I had the state numbers, but we're looking at putting, say, $7,000 or to $10,000 a year in each teacher. How does that compare with the development and recruitment that we are doing within the district for the traditional teachers?
Right, so that is an excellent question, and one that we are working on every day, because we don't want to have an investment in something that we don't believe we're getting a good return on. We do believe that the return on investment in TFA teachers is exceptional, and we do believe that it's worth the money now. That said, because their teachers are really hitting it out of the ballpark in many cases. On the THEC study, the Tennessee Higher Education Council study on all preparation programs, they accounted for only 2% of the teachers in that study, but they accounted for 20% of the statistic significance with student achievement. That's what we're seeing in our district too, so we are thrilled with the performance.
Right.
We can't sustain a model like this forever, and we recognize that, and so what we're trying to do is learn from our TFA colleagues, learn from the successes of their selection process and ongoing development process, and make sure that we're building capacity internally so we can move forward and do a lot of that work internally. And they have been unbelievable partners with us, handing over criteria, rubrics, selection processes, because they want to build that capacity. That's part of their model.
Okay, but is the idea for us not to continue the contract with them after a certain time, or are we going to have both?
I mean, ideally, we would be selecting and recruiting all of our teachers internally if we had the capacity to do that in a way that provided highly effective teachers or effective teachers immediately. That is not what we have the capacity to do currently, so that's why we need the contract. Down the line, I don't know what that relationship will look like. I do really value it now, and I really think the return on investment is well worth the dollars.
Okay. But we don't know exactly if I were to look at how much we're investing, because my other question is, okay, we don't know how much we're investing in each teacher that is not TFA within the district. Do we have a number for that?
So like a professional development?
Yeah, and recruitment, because my question is, if we're getting higher results from the TFA teacher, might that not have something to do with the amount of money that we're putting into them? And so then how do we make that sustainable, or do we, yeah.
I don't have the exact per teacher on professional development. We have about an $850,000 budget in professional development that goes to all teachers at all levels. And so there is a great investment in, and that's for teachers and administrators. We've not broken it down what that costs per. I think we can look at, some recent things that we've done, specific topic-wise, to get an idea behind what that cost is.
But if I look, if I go 850,000 divided by 6,000, that's $141. I was wondering, but you're saying that's also, what is that?
No, that's at the district level.
We
We haven't divided it out that way.
Okay.
I need to give you specific.
Okay.
And it is over time, and it's also campus-based. The campuses also, invest in them as well in their own campus professional development based on those campuses or those schools. So we don't have that. What we do know is what kind of return on investment we get with the teachers that we do have now as far as effectiveness. And what we really want to do is to work on the retention piece. Mm-hmm. Like the retention from first to second, we're looking at second to third. as Katie said, they're very open, and they're a good partner in that they're sharing practice and helping us to look to those things. And they've been very receptive when we've said we've had specific needs in specific areas, and in, addressing our different needs that we've had as far as recruiting and the open vacancies that we've had.
Okay.
And they've been receptive when we haven't gotten what we needed. They've been very good at working with us and working with their teachers to bring them up to speed.
And I've toured with them, and I agree, they've been good partners. Okay, and then I have 2 more questions, and I'm going to be quiet. Is the contract that we have now the same contract we have had in the past, or has it increased in any way?
Well,
I'm sorry, I'm putting you on the spot. I'm really sorry. I should have.
In magnitude, it's essentially the same. The terms of termination are slightly different. In other words, there's a built-in provision in this contract where a teacher who does not stay with the district results in a refund to us on a prorated basis. There's also terms for what happens at different points in a given school year when we cancel, and that's new, was not in the previous contract. Otherwise, it's very similar looking.
Okay, but the numbers are about the same. We're not really.
Approximately the same.
Okay. Okay, and final question, and then I'm going to stop. The big complaint that I've been hearing about the TFA contract is that these teachers have to be hired first. So we are displacing good teachers in some cases. We are not hiring, and I know you're working on this, but we're not necessarily hiring the best grads from the best institutions first, because we have to fill this contract. And I recognize that you're saying that these are performing well. So, but at the same time, I feel like it seems kind of like a quota. Like we have to get these in, and then we'll figure out who. And so I'm wondering if that's something we could modify within the contract to make it more fair.
I would say we used that model last year. It wasn't just TFA. It was also a group of early agreements that were our high priority candidates. So it wasn't just TFA. It wasn't just TNTP. It was a mix.
Okay.
And then principals also had access to every teacher in the district who wanted to transfer to their schools. So we tried to make it where they had more choice across the board than we ever had
But there are
before.
priorities where they have to hire certain groups first?
And we can definitely look at that.
Yeah,
We never want a principal to feel forced to hire somebody. We want them to hire the best person for the position. We hire roughly 600 teachers a year, and TFA is 100 roughly of those 600. So 1/6 of all the new hires. We are under Shireen's leadership, we are very hard going out to get great recruits from high-performing other traditional preparation programs, and those fill the slots of all the remaining places. And we couldn't do this work without them, and they are doing great work in the buildings as well. We also don't think we could meet those recruitment needs, though, without the support of that 100 TFA teachers. If principals are feeling they're forced on them, though, we need to have a conversation internally, and that needs to stop.
Okay. Okay. I think I'm done, sorry. That's a lot of questions.
Any other questions or comments? Ms. Spearing?
How many of our TFA teachers stay longer than 2 years?
I think it's roughly 65%. I'm not positive about that number, though. And we also have others that stay beyond 3rd year as well, into 5th, 6th years. But we don't have, I don't know if we have.
We can always, if you can get that information to Ms. Bobo, that'd be great.
It's not as high as we want it to be, but they are aware of that, we're aware of that, and we're really working to retain those teachers.
Yeah, I think it would be great if we could encourage a 5-year contract with the best teachers. I mean, you're saying that TFA teachers really outperform new teachers that we find from local universities and are searching throughout.
In general, that's a generalized statement, of course, but in general, yes, they are outperforming other hires.
So the other statistic that we don't have now is what the dropout rate, if you will, is of other teachers, because over the first 4 or 5 years of a new teacher's employment, there is a drop-off rate that's fairly significant across the board, not just for TFA. We continue, I appreciate your questions, and we continue, because this is a big contract, we continue to look at this every year, and one thing that, a couple of ways that I've looked at it is this. We're talking about a beginning teacher's salary, which for us is, in round figures, $40,000 a year, plus an additional $5,000 cost, which still is among the cheaper instructors that we have in the district. But when we look at performance overall, we see that these people are getting very high student achievement data. And so we feel like in that regard, it's a good return on investment. And what I asked Mr. Appenfelter to do this year is also look at this contract. And I think the wording now, correct me if I'm wrong, but it is to a maximum of 75 a year, so that if we choose to hire 50 or not quite as many, or if we have financial difficulty, we can back out of the contract. Is that correct?
That is correct. Maximum 75 and an annual declaration on our part of exactly how many we want.
Ms. Shepherd?
Katie, would you have any idea as to why they might leave after the second or third year, or would it be the same for them as it is for a hire from a different source?
Well, nationally and in our district, the research shows that we are having a significant drop-off after 3 years, regardless of Teach for America or whatever preparation. So we're looking heavily at that issue. We're wondering what's going on there. It's by far much higher than we're comfortable with and that other urban districts are experiencing. So we want to really take a look at that. There's a lot of theories about it. I don't know if Teach for America has done their own research on it. I would guess that it is sometimes TFA is sold as not a career option, but as an option out of college, and so that might be part of the reason. It's something to Peace Corps type work, where you go and do it for a little while and you don't necessarily stay on it as a career. I also do think that the millennials are moving careers at a much higher rate than we ever saw in our life. So I don't know. I don't think it's necessarily all TFA, but I do think their model probably does affect it. So.
And I think you're absolutely right. I think it has a lot to do with the millennials. A lot of corporations are seeing that same type of movement. There are very few long-term employees now. You see 3 to 5 years, and then they start to move on into different areas. So, any other questions from board members? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, Ms. Froh.
I'm inclined to vote for the contract tonight. I just want to make sure that we are really, and some of these questions, some of these answers you're giving me tonight are assuring, but I want to make sure that we are really looking sort of like long-term sustainable solutions, and if this, this can be part of it, but, I want to make sure that we're training all of our teachers this well. If they're getting a substantial investment in their training and also encourage them to stay longer so that we get our biggest bang for the buck. And I'm asking these questions because I feel like this is my job as, an elected representative who is looking after the taxpayer dollars, so.
Those are all the same questions we ask ourselves around the table all the time.
Yeah.
So.
We appreciate that, and we do not take this lightly. So we really want to we all would not invest this kind of money if we didn't think that the return was worth it.
Okay.
And one other factor that I think is also very important that I'll plug before we finish the conversation, and that's our diversity management plan. And we have set high expectations of Teach for America for bringing us high-quality teachers, but also a diversity of teachers. And I think their record has improved in that regard. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your willingness to step up.
Yeah, thanks for letting me. I'm sorry.
No problem. All right. So we have the Teach for America contract open for approval. Is there a motion?
I move.
Second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All right. All in favor of approval, please.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions?
Right here.
Thank you. Motion passes. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Hayes, recommendation for approval of proposed capital improvement budget. Would you provide an update, please?
The capital improvement budget committee met this evening together with the entire board. The board and the committee voted to defer action on this budget until we can meet again to discuss. We will be meeting on January 30th as a committee at 4 p.m. and likely will announce a specially called board meeting that I hope will be quite short, immediately following the committee meeting, to approve the 6-year plan that we'll be submitting to the planning department the following day. Unfortunately, with Christmas, New Year's, holidays, snow, it was very difficult for committee members, staff, and the board to get together as a whole. And even this evening with executive session and other conflicts, it was hard to get more than about 40 minutes to discuss all of our priorities. So we will meet until we are ready to vote on the 30th.
Thank you. And Mr. Hayes has threatened that we will not leave the room until we have come to a conclusion. Pizza's on you. All right, we'll move into the director's report. Dr. Register.
Thank you very much. Madam Chair, members of the board, and members of the audience, it's a pleasure of mine to present to you a recommendation that has been in the works for some time now in our district with our partners and in the district also. And I want to ask Lisa to come up, Lisa Wiltshire, who is helping with the presentation tonight, and also Brenda Steele and Chris Weber, who will be making a part of the presentation with me tonight. And this proposal is to consider expansion of the pre-K program in our school system. And I'll stop for just a minute so that they can bring it up. Very good. Now we don't. Okay, good. Thank you. And this is, as I said earlier, this is a presentation on a proposal to expand our pre-K programs in metropolitan Nashville public schools. This is for 4-year-old programs. And I want to first give you a vision that we've worded for this. We would like to be a national model for early childhood education here in metropolitan Nashville public schools. We've set ambitious goals for quality and excellence in serving pre-K children. Our goal is that we will increase the number of 4-year-old children served in Davidson County through high-quality pre-K programs. That's to increase the number of seats available for the children that we have in the district and to provide quality programs. The need, you can see we have some data based on studies that we've done. There are 8,680 4-year-old children in Davidson County approximately. That number's probably changed a little bit today, as it will from day to day. We currently only serve 2,516 children in our metropolitan Nashville public schools pre-K classrooms. You can also see that we have other partners that play a very significant role with us. Head Start is the main one that serves. Head Start serves 1,485. The number of 3- and 4-year-olds in pre-K programs or preschool programs also, leaving a large number of students who are unserved in our district. So the rationale that we've developed is to develop, there is a much greater demand than a supply of affordable, high-quality education programs in our district. A couple of reasons, statistics to show you how we feel about that. First, we have a waiting list of over 1,000 students. That is unsolicited. We do not create a waiting list. We do not advertise for a waiting list because we know that the number of seats that we have will be, the number of applicants that we have will greatly outnumber the seats that we have available in our district. Census data is projecting growth. We know that the number of children in our district is going to continue to grow. The number of preschool-age children is going to continue to grow, and a high percentage of those children will be economically disadvantaged children. Over the past couple of years, the state has changed the entrance requirement for schools. And there's an unintended consequence, in my opinion. I don't think that's an intention on the part of the state, but for the last 2 years now, we've changed entrance requirement to school from September 30th, you have to be 5 years old on or before September 30th, to 5 years old on or before August 15th. That essentially leaves out in our district approximately 800 children a year who have to wait an extra year to go to school. That's okay if children in that age group have a pre-K experience, but we know that a very large percentage of our children are economically disadvantaged, and the result of this change in age is that many of our children just have to wait an extra year before they before they begin to receive quality programming. Pre-K benefits. We have continued to see more and more compelling research that shows there is a real return on investment for investing in pre-K programs, for investing in early childhood education. I've forwarded to the board some of the research that's been shown, and as you know, over the past couple of years, there have been different research projects that have shown different results, but as we study more and more, as we learn more and more about early childhood education, the results are compelling that there's a tremendous return on investment. Somewhere between 5 and 8 times the investment is benefited from this results. And in my opinion, I think quality pre-K programs are as significant as anything we can do to improve the achievement of children in our school district and to get them better oriented to attend school. We also know the benefits that are received apply to all children, irrespective of income. Pre-K programs have focused up until now in our district on economically disadvantaged children. We'll continue to focus on that. But we also know that this is a positive benefit for all children that we serve, and we really want to expand the opportunities for all children in our district for a quality pre-K program. We have a plan that we're presenting to you tonight that will allow us over the next few years to serve all eligible 4-year-old children in Davidson County, to create 2 model pre-K learning centers by reconfiguring 2 schools that we presently have to create these model centers. In addition to growing the number of students that we serve, to increasing the number of students that we serve, it's very important that we significantly improve and standardize quality of programs in all of our schools and all of our sites. And so the first step that we're recommending to create these 2 model centers is to create model best practice schools. And Brenda Steele will address that as we go forward to improve both quality and to increase the number of seats available is the plan that we're presenting to you tonight. I want to ask Lisa, who is serving as project manager, to present the next slide, which is to look at the committees that we're putting together that have already been working to develop this plan, and then Lisa will introduce Brenda.
Thank you, Dr. Register. Good evening. I want to say off the top that I actually volunteered for this project. It's not often that people ask to have their workload increased, but pre-K is something that's near and dear to my heart, and have told many people that the most delight I've ever had in my career, other than this current job that I love, was when I was teaching, and specifically when I was teaching 4- and 5-year-olds. We put together this slide, not necessarily to just show you a list of names, but to show you that we're really looking at a comprehensive strategic plan that is multifaceted. We're looking at some things that you're going to hear about tonight that are near term, but we're also looking long term, like Dr. Register said, at growth and quality, which is why specifically we have assembled a steering committee involving internal and external partners. And I'd like to just take a moment. I think we have a number of members of the steering committee here, and if they wouldn't mind just standing up to be recognized. We have United Way and Stand for Children and Peabody Research Institute and the Mayor's Office and Head Start as just some of our partners that we're working with.
Only one person stood up?
That's the only person that's not shy. I think that quite a few other people who
exciting time. Thank you.
Thank you for your commitment and service. Thank you.
They may not know we were going to do that. But we also are working with school-based leaders, both administrators and teachers, as well as central office leaders from various departments, so that we can make sure that we're focusing on the most quality programming, the long-term funding, and getting some creativity into this plan and innovative ideas as to how we can, meet the needs of children and families in Davidson County. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brenda, who I think will acknowledge some very important and critical people on our team that are here tonight as well.
First of all, good evening. As she said, there are very special people in the audience that I want to recommend at this time for you to see. They're the leadership, pre-K leadership team, and some of them are here. So if you'll stay, and don't be so reluctant to stay. It is important
I will call you out if you don't stand up.
It is important that we make sure that we involve our teachers. So we have involved teachers in this planning session as well. But I do want you to know that we've also talked to not only the schools that we're talking about tonight, but their teachers as well and principals. So everyone involved at least knows the recommendation that is being made tonight. So when we talk about what are our strategies, of course, Dr. Register has already mentioned that we want to expand our services for eligible preschool-age children. And we want to provide model programs. And when we say model programs, what are we talking about? We're talking about full-day programs. At the previous time, pre-K hours are 8 to 2. We want to extend that 8 to 3 and also have after-school activities as well. We want to provide a nurturing early learning environment that stimulates support for children's cognitive, social, and emotional development. And social emotional development is important at this time. Training services to support our families, and professional learning communities for our faculty and staff. Even in this plan, we're looking at better utilization of our existing school resources that we already have. When we start talking about what would this model program include, these are some of the characteristics. Again, the stimulating and supportive interaction between teachers and children, which is very important in the pre-K years. A focus on academic preparation and social emotional development, which is a key for our preschool students. Individualized instruction for students, not only for students, but to get the students where they are and to increase their talents as they progress. Provide comprehensive services for our students, and this would also include parents and families. Instead of just saying educated and well-trained staff, what we want to say is certificated and also highly qualified staff. And then, of course, a coaching and mentoring program for our staff. Now, what would it look like? At Ross Elementary, there are presently 2 classrooms, and I'm going to really kind of go into detail, and Chris will go a little more into when he explains other things. There are 2 classes at Ross, 2 classes at Caldwell, and 2 at Glenn. So presently, we're serving 120 students in those sites. What we're proposing is to have 13 pre-K classrooms at Ross Elementary and add an additional 140 students there, which would be 7 new classrooms, and that would be a total of 260 students. At Bordeaux Elementary, we're proposing 10 pre-K classrooms to be in the school, and at this time, there are 80 students at Bordeaux and Cumberland. We would like to add 120 additional students, which would serve 6 new classrooms, which would be a total of 200 students. Dr. Red.
Thank you, Ms. Steele. And what I'd like to do is talk just a minute about why we're bringing this up now and how we intend to phase this in. The reason we are presenting this to you now before the budget process is because of the reconfiguration of schools. If we wait beyond this time, beyond the February board meeting, it's really too late to let parents know that we're changing school zones or reconfiguring schools. So we propose as a first step reconfiguring both Ross and Bordeaux as pre-K centers and reassigning students in those schools to neighboring elementary school districts. That is a cost-neutral change. Not talking about facilities, but talking about programming, because at a minimum, we would relocate existing pre-K centers in those surrounding schools into the new school, into the new pre-K centers. My intention is to bring to you a recommendation as a part of the budget process, and of course pending funding, to increase those numbers to the numbers that Ms. Steele was talking about, to really add 13 additional classrooms at the 2 schools and to serve additional students. Chris Weber is going to present the zoning plan and the change. Before Chris does that, I want to just say a minute about the location of these programs at Ross and Bordeaux, and Brenda Steele is being modest, but I want to say that Brenda is the person who really has been thinking about this for a considerable amount of time and looking at ideal locations for model centers. And when you see the maps, you'll know this if you don't know exactly where these schools are. Bordeaux is located on a major traffic artery coming into town. It's close to other elementary schools. It's on 41, just north of the river, and an ideal location to become a regional center. If you think about John Ross, it's John Ross Elementary. It's just down below East High School, and also on a major traffic, between 2 major traffic patterns coming into the inner city, and a great opportunity to serve families of people who live further out in East Nashville. So we feel like the geography is ideal for these 2 schools to be regional centers. And we also have a number of other schools in the vicinity where we're not changing zoning to move kids very far away from home. We're talking about in other schools that are in the same proximity. And final point I'll make is that this plan actually better utilizes facilities in the area that we have. So with that, I want to present Chris, and Chris, let you walk through the details of the zoning plan.
Okay, thank you and good evening. And so what I want to discuss with you tonight is the specific changes regarding student assignment to open the 2 new model pre-K centers. All of you received a packet, a proposal packet, and the presentation is going to walk through that with you, and packet provides some additional details. Started, the two new pre-K centers that are being proposed are going to be located at Ross and at Bordeaux. For these model pre-K centers, both Ross and Bordeaux have student assignment boundaries currently. So that requires some rezoning to implement these schools for next school year. For Ross, the proposed rezoning would move families into Glenn, Caldwell, and Warner, while Bordeaux would move families into Cumberland and Lillard. And I'll provide you some additional details. These proposed changes would take effect for the upcoming school year 2014. To begin, you'll just see the Stratford cluster map. This is the current cluster map as it is. And what you want to pay attention to is that darker green area is the current Ross attendance boundary. And that's the area that we're talking about reassigning. We zoom in just a little bit to show you the proposed changes. The areas for current Ross zone is divided into 4 areas. That's 11A, B, C, and D. And so all of the schools that we're talking about reassigning children to are in the immediate vicinity. When you look at Caldwell, Glenn, and Warner, they all surround the attendance boundary. 11A is recommended to assign students into Caldwell. 11B and C is recommended to reassign students into Glenn. And students in 11D would be reassigned into Warner. Now, what you see next is the same areas, 11A, B, and C, because Glenn and Caldwell are located in the Maplewood cluster. And so you can see the Glenn current attendance boundary is right there around Glenn in the dark green, and 11B and C is right in that area, while Caldwell is brown, and you can see how 11A is added to the existing Caldwell attendance boundary. To reconfigure Bordeaux into the model pre-K center, you can see this is the current Whites Creek cluster map. Bordeaux is the orange area, the darker orange in the bottom center, located there by the arrow. So that's the attendance boundary that we're recommending to reassign for next school year. To zoom in just a bit, you can see 12I and J are the 2 areas on the southern end. 12I and J make up the current Bordeaux attendance boundary. We recommend that the left-hand side, 11I, would be reassigned into Cumberland, and 12I, pardon me, and 12J would be reassigned into Lillard. Now, what you see in addition to this is the area 12H, which is located just behind Lillard. That area is currently assigned to Cumberland, and we recommend to reassign 12H into Lillard to help, for 2 reasons: to help balance the enrollment load, so this balances the impact at both schools, and it also helps because those children are right behind Lillard, and it would be recommended they could go to school at Lillard because it's that close. Now, the estimates that you have provided to you show enrollment impact estimates. To focus on the enrollment impacts, what you'll see is you're working from left to right. The first set of charts you're seeing on the presentation now is to reconfigure Ross. So Ross is going to affect the Maplewood and Stratford clusters. Working from left to right, you see Caldwell, you see the different grade-by-grade enrollment breakdowns. I'm primarily paying attention to the total enrollment in the red circle there. Caldwell currently has 278 students assigned to or enrolled in the school right now. And with these changes, the estimated impact would be that Caldwell would increase by 9 students. With Glenn, the enrollment is currently 177%, and the enrollment increase would be 64 students to an increased enrollment of 241. With Ross, the current enrollment is 235, and they would maintain their current pre-K students as well as also get the pre-K students that are currently at Glenn and Caldwell. So the pre-K would be 121 students, while all the additional students K through 4 would be reassigned to other schools. For Warner, the current enrollment's 341, and you can see the enrollment increases by 5 students to 346. Just the footnote on this page shows that these estimates account only for the zone schooled students. So when you see that Ross only has 121 pre-K students currently, those were the numbers, figures that you heard earlier from the current pre-K sites, and so these numbers would increase as we market and promote the program. To reconfigure Bordeaux into a model pre-K center, you can see where the current enrollment is 370. Now that would decrease that's showing a decrease of 95. Again, it's the same footnote here that this is just the existing pre-K students. The figure would be higher than 95, but this just shows the direct impact for current students. For Cumberland, the enrollment would increase by 70 to put the Cumberland enrollment at 470. And Jolton Elementary is showing on here, I'll show you that in just one second, but Lillard is increasing by 140 students to an estimated enrollment of 482. The reason why Jolton Elementary is on here is because the enrollment estimates, when we had to look at forecasting and predicting the impact, with Jolton Middle School returning to its permanent location after construction, this year temporarily the 5th grade students in Cumberland, Lillard, and also in Jolton Elementary School are currently in the elementary schools. Those 5th grades will return to Jolton Middle School next school year, and so these enrollment impacts take that into account for the shift in 5th grade taking place next year. When we looked at the analysis and studying the boundary changes and reopening these centers, we considered the impact on diversity, just as adopted by the board resolution and in the diversity management plan adopted by the district. When we studied the impact to diversity, we considered the definition of diversity and its 4-part definition, which composes of the racial ethnic makeup as well as the income, language, and disability factors. So you have some details in your packet, but the high-level bullet points regarding the impact to diversity are positive. First, the impact at Bordeaux and Ross, we estimate would be positive due to the marketing and recruiting efforts. These programs would be full-day programs with no fees for participating families, and the programs would also offer a significantly enhanced instructional program. Due to that, we expect a high demand for these programs and increased diversity across the board, and we expect for these schools to meet the definition of diversity within a 3-year period of time of opening. The additional schools impacted by the reassignment are positive for Cumberland, Glenn, and Lillard, and the impact to diversity is benign or neutral when you look at Caldwell, Jolton Elementary, and Warner. And that concludes my presentation.
Thanks, Chris. Let me say again that this is the first step of an expansion process, and we wanted to take a very modest first step so that at this point in time we can make these conversions without an increase in operating budget. But that's not our goal. Our goal is to increase the number of students served and to increase the quality of programs that we have to offer across the district. One of the underserved areas in the community, in the county, that is not addressed in this first step is the fact that the southern end of the county has a very high number of 4-year-olds that are not served presently. And we all know that one of our challenges in the southern end of the county is lack of space. So as we continue to move into the spring, our goal would be to continue to look for a way to better serve a very high percentage of children in the southern end of the county, high English learner population, high economically disadvantaged population, and to bring additional recommendations to you for growth. This plan is a modest change to start. It serves 200 students by just reconfiguring what we have with the 2 pre-K centers. The first expansion is to add an additional 260 students in East Nashville and North Nashville that would be served by the expansion of these programs. I would hope that we could double that number pending funding, and that's an important statement to make. We know that we don't have the budget. We don't want to get ahead of the rest of the budget presentation for you and would intend to include that. Again, the reason why we're making this proposal now is that we need to take action now if we're going to reconfigure these two schools and set up a model which can allow us to significantly improve quality of program and to expand the number of children served as we go forward. And with that, I'll stop and turn it back over to Ms. Mays, and the four of us will be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Are we ready? As I'm sure we have lots of questions. We'll start with Ms. Frog.
First of all, I just want to say thank you for this proposal. I think it's so important. It's such a worthy investment, particularly in a large urban school system like ours. We really have a vast need for this, and I, as a parent, I can tell you there are so many families waiting for pre-K that would love to be involved. My question is, the existing pre-K programs that are already within the schools are going to continue with the fee charged for those programs?
Our recommendation at this time is not to change that. There is a state requirement for state-funded pre-Ks that there is a sliding fee. What we would recommend, though, for these model centers is no fee. We will still give priority status to economically disadvantaged children. I think that's a real challenge for us in our district, and we have so many children who are not served now. But we also want to increase diversity, and we want to make ultimately, in a 5-year plan, pre-K ought to be free for all children who attend regardless of economic status. And that is our goal to work toward.
Well, how many will be blended pre-K classrooms? Will you continue that model with the new schools?
Yes, all.
All of them? Okay.
Any other questions?
That's it.
Mr. Hayes?
I have a handful of questions, and hopefully they'll be pretty quick.
In other words, you want quick answers.
Thorough answers. And I touched on this earlier in the capital budget meeting and thought it might be addressed this evening, but I'm curious why. We do have other buildings with capacity, and as I've talked to school leaders throughout the county in buildings that do have pre-K, they've seen a tremendous benefit to pre-K programs where the 4-year-old comes into the building and learns the routine. So just, can you talk a little bit about why a dedicated pre-K center versus why don't we look around throughout the county at these buildings where we do have classrooms that are vacant?
Well,
and build the capacity there.
Yeah. Well, we think to start to create model centers, and I want to get Brenda to respond to this too. We're really looking at model schools, and either model serves communities well. When you look across our district, there are many areas where we do not have space to provide pre-K in every school. We have 75 elementary schools, and it's not practical for us to think about providing programs in all of those. It is an advantage to be decentralized, to have programs in all schools. There's also something to learn from having centers or model sites. I looked at our friends at Head Start. They have 7 centers, and they're very good programs and serve children very well. So I think in a district like ours, as diverse as it is, to have a combination of both would serve us best. Brenda?
I think we're going to have to look at both cases, look at those classes that are available in our schools, but that's very limited. And even we're talking about approximately 13 addition, we don't have that many sites that would be able to house the students. When you think of the southeastern end of the town, there are no classes. We were looking at that. We've gone around and checked. So it's very difficult to find schools that even have space available. So we have really looked into everything as far as how can we expand pre-K all over Nashville, and it's very difficult to do that. So that's the reason we came up with the model program or the model policy.
I guess I thought not as much about Nashville as a whole, and I do agree particularly in the southern area of the county, we do have a lot of pressure, but in this part of town, we've had lots of conversations around excess capacity. Not geared as much at the elementary level, but certainly at middle and high school.
I was going to say it would have to be in middle and high. Our elementary schools, and I've been looking at the total, we have approximately maybe 13 schools at almost 900. So when you think about that, and even the schools that are around in Nashville, they're at 600 and 700. So it's very difficult to find space for our pre-K classes.
I think when we think about also about full service and quality of programs, Bordeaux is a good example of a school that has a great asset, and that's a family resource center. And so when you think about full-day service and the services that can be provided through an effective family resource center, that's a great advantage for parents. And to locate 10 or 12 pre-K program classrooms in a center with a family resource center, it's a one-stop shop for families, and many of those families need assistance. So that approach really supports the model center concept. I don't know if our friends from Vanderbilt are here or not, but we've talked so much about quality program and building the right climate and culture and really building the very top quality program. And so we want these to be demonstration schools, too, to start. I think we need those. You know, one of my concerns is that when you decentralize completely, you place programs in isolation. And if we have schools that have maybe only 1 or 2 classrooms per school. And so they're isolated, and I think to have the lab schools, if you will, or the model schools is a great advantage for us for a start. I know in Mr. Pinkston's area and Ms. May's area, we have elementary schools that are very large. Some of those elementary schools have a number of pre-K classrooms in them, and particularly down Nolensville Pike, if you think about the area around Paragon Mills and Tusculum, and there are a number of elementary schools that are right there, and it'd be great to put a pre-K center right in the middle of those schools. It would relieve overcrowding, and it would also give us an opportunity to build another site. So we're looking for partnerships there. We don't have answers to that. We have made inquiry about finding partners to give us space, to partner with us, to provide programs in those areas. And I look forward to us being productive with that as we go into the spring and into the budget process.
Thank you. I'm curious, have we geocoded the wait list? Do you know where the people that are on the wait list actually live? I mean, intuitively, right, there's a lot of population density in the east and west Nashville.
The wait list is mostly in the southeastern area, and Phyllis Phillips is here for, if you have any more discussion about who exactly or where they are located, but they're mostly in the southeastern part of Nashville. So
within the wait list, if the idea is that this center could open as soon as September, right? If there's funding available, if we move this forward this summer, demolition could occur, bathrooms could be built, all the things that we think have to happen. This center could be open by August. I'm just curious, any sense how many 3-year-olds we have that are in the immediate area of Bordeaux and Ross that are on a wait list that we're not currently serving? Because it's a hike, it's a long drive for people from the southern part of the county to get across the county. And I'm just wondering if this is the best place and if the demand is there.
I know that we're saying that the southeastern part is the largest area, but there are children that we serve in from the Madison area, Goodlettsville area that we don't serve. So this is another opportunity that if their parents would want the services, then we are providing them. And when you think about the number of kindergarten children we service, which is about 7,700, we're only servicing 2,500. So think about that total as well.
I am. So I'm wondering, we have census tract and block group data available that shows how many kids are alive, how many we're serving, and how many we're not serving. So how many, even if we go up to Madison, if we go up to Goodlettsville, how many do we think are actually coming? And I want to know, right, that this is the best,
I would have to get
the best place. for this investment?
The census data and the block group data is primarily what you saw there with the 4-year-old enrollment is based on 2000 census with an estimate for 2012 and I believe 2017 with the projected growth there. That comes from the ESRI software product demographic analyst. Okay. Now, as far as there is American Community Survey data, which looks at how many children attend public and private school, that data is a little different because it actually breaks out any 3-year-olds. It groups 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds together into one subset. The one thing that I think is worth mentioning here, with our conversations through community representatives, with principals, with leaders, with parents that we've had thus far, they say that one, the full day program is going to be a lot different. The fact that it's a full-day program, the fact that there's no fee, the fact that it's an outstanding academic program, we don't see the challenge with filling a program like that up at these two sites. But you are correct that it doesn't necessarily address the need or the demand in Antioch and that area.
And I don't know if it does or doesn't. I'm just curious if we're confident come September, if we make, because we're impacting with this change, a lot of teachers, a lot of, we're moving kids that are zoned for Stratford to Maplewood, right? We're making a big change. That the demand exists in this area that we're going to open full. And look, I fully believe in pre-K, right? I've got a 5-year-old. He's been in pre-K. I believe in it, but I want to make sure that it's the right investment in the right place and that it's going to be well subscribed. And that's as we're thinking about it. And then the follow-up question to that is, what else do you need? If it's net, do you need more? So what do you need, right? What can we do as a board to make this the best investment possible?
To make this investment, to me, the best possible is, number one, I do believe that we could fill all our seats. I really do with the marketing piece. If parents are aware of what we're providing, I think we can do that. Again, the expansion, I think it's needed. Many of our children do not have pre-K experience, so when they enter kindergarten, they have a lot of concerns or they have concerns. So we want to meet the children where they are and have them ready for school. And that's the whole purpose of us expanding. And not only that, we are looking at our underutilized buildings. We want to ensure that those underutilized buildings are filled to almost capacity. And by these plans, we are helping that to happen as well. So it's really twofold. Really, we want pre-K students in our schools, but we're also looking at our facilities that are underutilized.
So the budget that's been proposed is adequate to make this the best it can be. That's the what do you need question.
Well, what we need would be the funding for the 26 classrooms.
Right, so it's 900, so it's approximately $1 million for Bordeaux and $70,000 for Ross to add bathrooms. Right? I mean, that's you don't need anything else? I mean, right? It's
well, your cost.
I'm curious what if we're going to make this leap, how do we make it the best it can be?
So at the minimum, at the first step, is to relocate existing programs. So you don't have to buy furniture. The staff's already there. You're relocating programs to start the two centers. The state estimates the cost per classroom to start up a classroom, the operating cost to be $150,000 a year. That's for two staff plus the furniture, materials, and supplies and so forth. And we use that higher figure as we expand the program. So so remember, we're talking about a phase-in and building greater capacity thoughtfully and over time. But a really good place to start in these two areas. We think the schools are ideally located. If you look at Bordeaux, we're talking about Cumberland and Lillard and Alex Green, at least 3 elementary districts, and even on up to Joelton, funneling into Nashville, and it's an ideal location. It's a block off Highway 41 on Trinity Lane. And Ross, we consider the same thing, and regional recruitment and programs for young children. I think the challenge for us will be, it is the southern end of the county. There is a great need there. We just can't make a quick start there. We have to develop capacity there. We've got capacity in the northern and eastern quarters that we can put to use now. And that's pretty much the way I look at that.
I think one thing to add, and we're learning from our partnership with Peabody as well, is looking at other places that have done this. And one thing we want to emphasize is these centers, this is not the only approach to expanding pre-K. These are pretty unique, and they can be innovative. So, the reason we're not presenting any specific numbers yet is because we're still developing that. It depends on what we want to do. But one important thing to note is that, for instance, to the Tennessee, the voluntary study on pre-K in Tennessee, a place like Murfreesboro started out with a hub, but then ended up disaggregating it. Well, we can learn from what didn't go well there, which mainly was, we're not talking about just housing a bunch of students in classrooms in one place, but really leveraging the fact that we will have multiple classrooms in one place so that we can have comprehensive services for families and students, which we know from the research really adds to the benefit and the long-lasting effects of pre-K for both academic and non-cognitive. So these are distinct in that way. This isn't the only growth strategy. This is just a first step.
And I'm just thinking, for example, to the extent that the state doesn't mandate pre-K, there aren't lots of requirements around how you develop a pre-K center. And I want to make sure that we're being asked, right, for enough money to make it the model, to make it something that really is attractive to families. Because I think back about recruitment and diversity, how do we make it the most attractive? And if it's, I need an extra $100,000 for whatever, and I don't know that you do. I just want to make sure that we've heard that. And if you're saying that you've given, because you didn't, nobody from pre-K talked to the capital budget committee to say, here's what we need and why. Staff talked about it, but none of you guys did in this. It's just it's a big move.
Yeah.
So your dollars are great. You're happy.
Well, no, preliminarily, what we've built out is that if we want to add capacity and fill these seats to capacity, so if we had 460 students served, the cost right now that we're looking at is approximately $1.9 million.
For these two buildings.
Yes.
That's right. So it's
right.
1.9. So there's another, you've got 900,000 in year one for Bordeaux and 70,000 at Ross.
Yes, and that what you're talking about is the capital costs.
Right. So there's another $1 million in operating
costs. Yes.
If we take the first expansion step, and that would be that's an increase in enrollment. That's the 1.9 million is the increase in enrollment of additional 260 students.
That's this increase in enrollment.
That's correct.
Okay. And so that would fold back into the operating budget that we have.
And that will be a starting point for our recommendation to you. And frankly, I hope we'll be able to recommend more than that to get a start in the southern end of the county also. But that's a budget increase.
Within the additional $1.9 million, how much of that's marketing? How much of that is marketing? So we've talked about other schools that are, so this is kind of like a choice school. People choose to go there. And we've talked about choice schools opening in racially isolated areas and how challenging that can be to recruit a diverse student enrollment, right? So I'm just curious how much money of the $1.9 million you're proposing for marketing, and who's in charge of marketing this to attract a diverse student body within the next 3 years? Who does that fall to?
Yeah, I'm gonna let Brenda address that, but the 1.9 million does not designate specific funds for marketing. The marketing would be done within the infrastructure that supports pre-K now for these two centers. So I'll let you speak to that.
But not only that, that is the reason we have teams available, and so therefore the marketing will be discussed during the team meetings. We are in the planning process of what not only the marketing looks like, but even how we enroll students. So that is being planned as we speak.
I'll speak to that some more, too. While internally there's not a specific marketing plan, we do recognize that specific strategic marketing is necessary to achieve the diversity goals that we've outlaid here, and in addition to make sure families are aware of the opportunity to enroll in these programs. And as was just mentioned, we're also in the current process of evaluating the entire pre-K application process to revamp and consider ways to streamline that.
So the two departments that would be involved in that are Communications Department and Olivia Brown and Meredith Libby and that staff, and also Chris Weber's staff with school choice and zoning plan. We've had conversations with Dr. Stevens, our consultant, on our diversity plan that we really need to strengthen that. So we'll look at redeploying existing services to really try to build a marketing staff to create to attract a diverse student population to a lot of our schools. I think it's a really good question, really good point. And a part of that will be recruiting a diverse student population for our pre-K centers here and in other places.
So just trying to also, I guess, following up on that theme, and I've heard kind of conflicting answers. I heard at one point we would not charge a fee, but we would give priority to economically disadvantaged folks.
Correct.
Who are the people who live there. So would we not try to reserve slots for people who aren't ECD? Because if we're reserving all economic disadvantage, if those guys have the priority and they're the ones that can live and walk, how do we make sure that we have slots for a more diverse student body?
Well, I think we have to recruit for both, and take applications and hopefully build a diverse student population, but also give priority to economically disadvantaged children. We won't be able to accomplish completely both of them until we serve all of our children.
Yeah, and so that's where I want to do. We go to a GPZ and say, you know what, if you live within 2 blocks, you get a priority. But it seems that it would be difficult to recruit a diverse student body if you're giving priority to economically disadvantaged people who are the ones that are closest to the building, that theoretically the economically disadvantaged could fill the building up.
So Brenda and Phyllis, do you want to speak to the applications that we have? And I think we have diverse applications now, don't we?
And I feel we probably would have far more in the East Nashville area if all the programs weren't state-funded programs in that area, in which families who make over income can apply, and most of them don't apply. But if we go through the application process, that the planning of that, I think that is going to help to attract more families, and the free program is also going to help us as well.
So my question gets back to if economically disadvantaged people have priority and they fill all the slots, how do we have slots available for people who aren't economically disadvantaged so that we have a diverse student body?
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to add, which is why we want to increase the number that we have now, the existing classrooms. If we go with just the 6, it would be more difficult. But if with the increased number at Ross and at Bordeaux, we think we can do that.
We've got quite a bit of experience in recruiting in our choice program that, and we know what the federal government will allow us to do and what it won't allow us to do. If we have more applicants than we have seats, we market, we target market, we market these areas, and then if we have more seats than, more student applications than seats available, then we have to do a lottery. You cannot go to a lottery. That's correct. You'd have to do a lottery. You cannot target a certain population and give them an advantage. We fill the number of seats that we have. If we have more applications, then we have to go to a lottery. The basic approach is to recruit a diverse set of applications.
Do you think...
Mr. Harris, let me hold off. We've got a lot of questions here, so I'll come back to you, okay? Thank you. Mr. Pinkston.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Dr. Register. Nice way to start the new year. This is really a gift to the community. I think it shows Christmas doesn't just happen in December. I want to push back on something you said earlier. You said that this was a modest beginning to a bigger plan. I actually think it's quite bold. If I'm understanding this correctly, we're talking about adding 460 seats on top of 2,500 that already exists. It's an 18% increase that comes, by this fall, or that starts happening this fall. And so I think that's it. When you look at the opportunities for driving operational efficiencies by better utilizing underutilized buildings, the kind of minimal cost that this bears on the budget in both capital costs and recurring costs, and then the academic interventions that are being put in place here, basically taking students from certain schools and resituating them in higher performing schools. I mean, it's got so many layers to it that are very interesting. I think it's very innovative. I've got a few questions, and I guess the first one is just a basic clarification that relates to some other conversations that have been ongoing for a while. When an elementary student leaves a building at Bordeaux or Ross and goes to another elementary school in the nearby area, does that cost the system $9,100, I guess is the question that I've got. Okay, so basically our students can lateral between buildings at probably some sort of incremental cost to us, but there's no funds that are being taken from one building to another in a way that we've seen in other situations. Second thing is, speaking of charter schools, what role are we asking the charter schools in those areas of town to play in helping manage this transition? It seems like, they're there, they ought to play, they say they want to, be helpful in situations like this. Have we reached out to them and had any conversations about what role they could play?
At this point in time, we have not. These are pre-K programs, early childhood programs, and I'm not aware of charter schools having pre-K programs. I would expect us to serve the children who would later feed into non-charter public schools and charter public schools.
Yeah, I'm not talking about charters playing a role in pre-K, but charters playing a role in the elementary populations from Ross and Bordeaux and other schools that when they go elsewhere.
Right. There are charter schools in that particular area, and I think they would have the same opportunity to recruit students that they have now. Ross is in an interesting location because it's surrounded by other schools, and the enrollment there has actually been declining. Ross has 191 students, I believe, now. And it's a good building, and it's a great location. And that's really one of the reasons why we think it's an ideal place to reconfigure a school and serve as that model, as that hub, if you will, for pre-K education in that area. There's a Head Start pre-K program in the same area too at Douglas, and I think Head Start serves about 200 students there. But there's a large population there. And I'll use that to say that, and I think there are a number of other providers in the room now. This is not a program where, we've got to work in partnership, because the goal here is for all of us to come together and to serve all the children in our county. It's not to move kids from one program to another, but to enhance the programs that we have. And I feel very good about the working relationship we can have there. There are private providers in Davidson County, and this is early on. Obviously, one of the first things I need to do is talk to the Board of Education about this plan. But over the next month, we intend to engage many people in this conversation. We intend to go to the 2 schools that we're talking about and meet with the school communities, meet with the parents there. Brenda and Phyllis have already talked to all of the faculties for all of the schools provided, and you might want to make some comment about that. But also the community outreach is very important now over the next month. And what we'd ask you to do is to think about this and engage with us in the conversation so that you feel comfortable voting in February one way or the other. Brenda, you might want to talk about the engagement of the faculties, because I know you've been doing this, and the principals.
We wanted to ensure that our faculties knew that we were bringing the proposal up today, and so we visited every school that is impacted. We really got positive responses from all faculties. Their questions were very simple. If my students go to Glenn, will I go there, or where will I be? And so those are questions that we want to make sure we have answered for them as soon as possible. But anyone that has mentioned pre-K, it's very positive from every impact that we've had.
And so to address the cost-neutral aspect of transferring children from one building to another, a very simple approach is teachers follow the children. If we move 60% of the teachers from Ross to Glenn and 40% to Caldwell, then we would expect 60% of the teachers to go one way and 40% another way. Now, we'd set up a process for listening to what people want and for what principals want. You know, that's a mutually agreed upon aspect, but teachers follow the kids, staff follow the kids. And in terms of the reconfiguring the two buildings, we have an administrative staff in those two buildings, so you're not talking about adding schools or opening schools. You're talking about using existing resources, particularly human resources, to serve the children that we have in different places.
Just two more quick questions. I'm pleased, about the prospective benefits that we're going to see in these model centers in North and East Nashville. I'm also interested in asking about the potential, or maybe expanding the conversation about the potential for adding capacity in South Nashville, in the areas that Dr. Brannon and I represent. As we know, those are also the areas that have enjoyed over the last 20 years an immigration renaissance. And I've been thinking a lot about whether pre-K, could and should be an integral part of our strategy for improving the delivery of educational services to our English language learners. And is that something that holds promise either in research or instinctually, as an instructional leader?
Both ways. Research is emphatic that children who do not speak English greatly benefit from a pre-K experience. It's a no-brainer. You can just see how. And to build the quality programs to serve a large English learner population would pay tremendous benefits for us as we go forward, I believe, in giving our kids an appropriate head start on language development, on acclimation to school, and many other aspects of that.
So that was a loaded question.
Yeah.
And so I'll make a statement. More than half of our English language learners in the school system are in grades K through 3, correct?
Right.
And I believe this, as this expands into other parts of the county, could be and will be an integral part of the solution for helping us do a better job delivering high-quality services to young new Americans. I'm very excited about it. Last question I have is universal pre-K defined as every family who needs a seat gets one. Do we know kind of what the upper end of that could look like, or is that something that's going to require more survey and experience?
We definitely need to do precise gathering of data on that. But if you think about growing a program over 3 or 4 years, you add as there is demand. But in round figures, we know that we're going to have about 8,500 children at the 4-year-old range. 70% of our children are economically disadvantaged. That's a starting point, although I think we'll serve more than 70%. So we've got to at least double the number of seats that are available now from all sources if we want to provide quality preschool program to all who want it and need it. That's our goal. My definition of universal is a program, a seat available for all children and families who want it and who need it.
We're in a position not to just lead the state, but to lead the country. Very exciting.
Thank you. Ms. Shepherd?
Well, I would echo my colleagues' comments and saying thank you to everyone who was instrumental in putting this together, because it is like Christmas, because I have visited several of the pre-K classes in some of my schools, and not only do they serve the economically disadvantaged, but they also have a lot of special needs. So my question is, would we still include those children as well?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And this would, students for these two schools would be the zone students, but it wouldn't be an open enrollment option?
No, it would be regional, it would be open enrollment. And as is the case now, you can apply to go to any of the pre-K programs now, regardless of where you live. Generally, you'll see a greater concentration closer to the sites, but not necessarily so. Brenda, you want to address, Phyllis, you're shaking your head no. I think I gave the wrong answer.
That's you. Well, basically, what we do is we serve anyone who has an application. So therefore, I might live in North Nashville, but I may take my child to South Nashville for a pre-K seat if there is one available. So what we're saying is we're hoping that through the model programs that we will receive children from all over Nashville and possibly fill every one of those seats, which I think we will. And when you said, are there exceptional ed seats? Yes, they are. Are there EL seats? Yes, they are. We said all children. So what we're hoping is that we can get a diverse population where we can meet the needs of our children.
And they would have transportation?
They would have to provide transportation. In pre-K, when you talk about transportation, that goes, when you talk about budget, that would be a big increase in budget for transportation.
But if they're in zone, they would have that, right?
No, we do not provide transportation for any of our pre-K students at this time, unless they're exceptional ed, yes.
Okay,
Yes. That's what you were asking.
Okay, thank you.
Before I move down to the educational end of our board, I'm going to get my questions in. And I just have a couple. Ms. Phillips, you talked about the wait list. I'm dying to know how many kids are on the wait list.
And that number varies from time to time, and it's up high now because typically after a semester, especially the Christmas break, we have a lot of mobility. So that wait list varies. So right now it's a little under 1,000, but it will probably go back up because we continue to take applications throughout the school year. And as more and more parents understand the enrollment law, we get applications based on that. We get applications based on just hearing about the programs. So it's roughly stays at about 1,000.
Okay. And we could conceivably fill both of those centers from the wait list?
Yes. Brenda and I feel strongly that we can, especially if not focusing on the children just within that zone and reaching out to children beyond. And we do that now, as Dr. Register says, because we feel that a lot of parents work in that area and in the downtown area, and we can advertise for those seats there. And I think the uniqueness of the program is the attraction to the working family.
And I will say this, I know we have a great need in the southeast Davidson end of the county, the southeast end of Davidson County. I've had several conversations with parents in my district who have said, if you build it, I will go, basically. So I don't have any disbelief that the parents, if these programs are available, they will find a way to get their children to these programs because it means that much. It is a step up for these children, and they need every opportunity they can get. Before I move on, let me make sure I've gotten all my questions answered. Fees are an important thing. So I know we talked about the fees for the existing pre-K programs will continue. So what's the likelihood that parents that have, I just answered my own question. Thank you.
But I think an important point to make, and Phyllis, I'd ask for you to answer this. How many children do we have out of 2,500 who actually pay fees now?
Right now, we have 152 families that are paying fees. Everybody else out of the 2,500, because we charge based upon a sliding scale, and those are the families that were eligible for the fee.
I'm so excited about this, I can't hardly stand myself. Thank you so much. Ms. Kim.
Thank you. So, like everyone else, there's so much, like I echo lots of what has been said. I mean, there is enormous opportunity in this. It is an incredible opportunity. And when I think about, and we all know, whether it's parents or educators, that the gap in academic outcomes, it starts early, arguably from birth. You need to create language-rich environments, develop strong attachments. I mean, there's so much that goes into kids' learning. And we know the gap then is pronounced even on day one of kindergarten. So this, like when I look at like the gap right now between low-income kids and higher-income kids in our county, and a lot of them reside in my district, I see this as holding so much promise, so much opportunity for kids in low-income areas in particular, who are disproportionately likely to be behind before day one. So you can sense the passion because I have a lot for this particular topic. And I do think then at the same time, so this is a belief, and I see there's tons of potential and opportunity. That just makes me then ever urgent to seize it. Because there's so much writing on this. I mean, the educational outcomes of our kids, I think it's a big play for us. I agree with Mr. Pinkston that it's an opportunity to be a lead, not just for Nashville, but for the whole country. I mean, there's so much opportunity. And so when I think then about the potential, I also think about then all the ECE, early childhood educators that I've been, ever since it has been the rising prominence of this topic, and when it came onto the docket, I was calling people and saying, okay, you've been in this profession for a long time. Tell me, what's your real take on this and what we should be mindful of? And so it's interesting to hear what comes out. And there's lots of opinions about, and it all boils down to quality, right? We know just the existence of the program is not enough. We have to really, really zero in on quality. And so we want to get off on the right foot. And so a lot of it's less questions and more things that I am just, after talking to all these educators, really mindful of. One is just, do we have a universal and consistent definition of what it even means to be ready for kindergarten day one? Just like, what is the goalpost? I'm convinced that we're going to be more likely to move the chains down the field in the right way at the pace that we want if we actually even know where we're headed. And so I think it's incredibly important for us to have that universal definition. And so that's one point. The second one, too, is in talking to educators locally, though, I know that we have community-based sites and then also school-based sites. And there's lots of opinions about, the differences between and among and what the highlights and the pros and the cons are. I heard things about, the evidence-based curriculum came up a lot. Do we have a really rigorous, great curriculum? Do we have a full-time literacy coach and tutor? All these different ideas. And so, of course, I'm thinking, what differentiates the best programs? And is there enough rigor that we know, like, where kids stand before they came in and where they exit? In terms of skill level, it matters. Like, we know, we can see, like, a well-prepared kindergartner, you can see it. And I'm not saying, like, some big standardized test. I'm not even talking about it. I'm talking about, it doesn't have to be that. It's more visceral than that. But we still need to codify it somehow and hold ourselves accountable because it's so high stakes. It's such a huge opportunity. So that was the second thing that came to mind. And what else? I think I have some. My third one is that I feel that if we can get those things right, we can actually set the goalposts very clearly, like very, very aggressively learn from the best programs that exist locally as well as nationally. I do think we're going to create then public and other will to then accelerate really fast, which is also another reason why I feel so passionately and urgently about getting these two programs, these model programs, truly right. Because aside from a couple hundred kids that are impacted by this opportunity, if we can hit it out of the ballpark and do what Mr. Pinkston was saying, become the true model for others to follow, I do think that will is going to build around it. And we're going to, it's very quickly across political and other community sectors, and the funding and everything else will follow. And so this is why I think, yes.
And I was just going to add, this is why I think the committees that we have formed and the people on those committees are going to be so important to the success of this program. Because when you look at the steering committee as well as the program committee, we want it, and it does now, consist of members of the community, the Alignment Nashville, United Way, and Del Farron from Vanderbilt University, and Head Start is on our steering committee as well. So we know all of that, all of this, the questions you raise are very important, and our steering committee as well as our program committee will be addressing those and making plans for that as well.
Absolutely. That's what I did as you were making your statement, was circle the program development committee on here. And that group is just now getting started, but it's a power group. And it includes those great teachers back there.
Got my teachers.
And it includes Peabody Research and all the others. I know I'm repeating what Phyllis said, but what I want to say is it's growth and it's quality, and one's just as important as the other. To build quality programs is what we're really after. So thanks for your comments about that. And it's one of the things that really excites me. When you decentralize completely you don't have the opportunity to build those model programs and best practices that we will build in these two sites as we expand. Consistency across the board in all of our sites.
Before I move on to Ms. Spearing, there was one other thing, I knew there was one other thing. One of the things that I like about this more than anything else is the opportunity for every single one of these children to be with their own. They are not going to be involved in situations where they're walking down the hall with older kids. An entire school dedicated to just pre-K is phenomenal, because while it allows them to get to know something other than home or daycare, but it also allows them to, at their own pace, get to know their fellow students and their teachers without having this overwhelming atmosphere or environment of older kids running around all over the place. So I can't help myself. I'm so excited about this. Ms. Spearing.
I want to echo my enthusiasm for the pre-K program and the fact that as a kindergarten and first grade teacher, when students come prepared for school, they just take off. And when they don't, it slows down the whole class to some degree. The thing that is concerning me is, although having two locations at this point where they all come together, that has many, many benefits, no doubt. But my concern is because we won't have transportation, and what parent would want their 4-year-old to get on a bus? I certainly wouldn't. But schools like Kirkpatrick, where parents may not have cars, how are they going to get their kids to Ross? Those are the things that concern me deeply. And I have 3 questions, but that's the first one. Please.
Kirkpatrick is not involved in this process. We felt like exactly what you said. Parents would not be able to get their children to school. So Kirkpatrick would continue their pre-K students as well as Warner. All we did was, as when we were looking at students and where they would move, you'll notice that there were only 5 children zoned for Warner out of the district for Ross. So we will not impact Kirkpatrick or Warner.
And in fact, you have pre-Ks located on site at Kirkpatrick.
Exactly, at both Kirkpatrick and Warner. Exactly, yes.
So are all the kids who need pre-K, do they have access to it at Kirkpatrick and Warner?
Right now, we service 4 classes, I believe it is, 2 at Warner and 2 at Kirkpatrick, as well as Martha O'Brien, 3.
And then the idea is that those 2 particular schools don't really have the opportunity for the diversity that we're planning for in our other pre-Ks. Is that true?
If their parents have transportation, we are not providing transportation, and that's in any of our pre-K classes. So if they wanted to go to that site and maybe on their way to work or whatever, they could apply for that seat.
Okay.
Yes.
Will there be any community meetings about this over the next couple of weeks or before February?
Yes, Dr. Register and I are planning some meetings. We will get dates, and of course, we will inform the board when those meetings will happen.
How many are scheduled, or are you planning for at this point?
We have not established how many we will have, but we will meet with every community, explain what's going on, and not only just the community leaders as well, because we want them to know exactly what's going on.
Good. And then my third question, we've talked about rigor and how we want these pre-Ks to be model programs. Give me, maybe Phyllis or Brenda, either one, maybe 3 ways. My granddaughter right now is in a pre-K program, and she can count to 100. She knows her letters. She knows her sounds. She can write her name. She's trying to write other types of stories now. What are the maybe 3 defining characteristics of how these programs will be different than what we have right now in terms of curriculum?
One of the things we're going to focus on in these sites is ensuring that our staff has the professional development within those buildings and that they have the coaching needed in order to, if problems arise in academic concern, with a child that may have academic concerns, that there will be somebody on site that can assist that person in in helping that child and meeting their needs. When we look back at the slides and we look at the characteristics of what we think a model site would look like, some of the things we talked about was that I mentioned the coaching and the well-trained staff, but I also think that a comprehensive curriculum is important, and that our staff understand how to implement the curriculum piece.
Yeah, that's what I want to hear more about. If you could just give me maybe 3 examples of what that would entail, just something quick. Yeah.
Has to be print rich. In other words, students have to be able to be exposed to literature where they can learn about different books and so forth. But it's important that they know their letters and their sounds. They're learning all these things because when you go into kindergarten, that's a big problem for many students, is that they are not, I call it readiness, school ready. And when they come in school ready with Common Core and all the things that they are asking kindergartners to do, pre-K is prepping the students, preparing them to be ready for the math, the strong language program, and that's important. Research says that many of our children are not exposed to, I think it was, 31 million words that they don't even hear before they go to kindergarten. So in school, the children will be exposed to vocabulary, math, social emotional learning. All those attributes are things they would need in order to be ready for school.
Yes, okay, good. So there'll be opportunities for a lot of rich verbal communication between teacher and student, and also students to each other.
And that's what we talked about when we said stimulating. It's important that teachers are able to talk to their students, that children are able to talk to each other. Even the art, the music, all of that plays a part in what the children are learning in pre-K.
And will learning be just about how kind of trick the kids into learning because they're having so much fun? It will be more holistic? Yes?
I think a lot of what, I've done a lot of reading on it over the last few weeks, and I think language development's really important. We know that a lot, particularly children, economically disadvantaged children, or children whose parents are work and don't have the opportunity, really don't have the language development they need. And I think one rich area for very strong development is positive relationships between adults and children that are constructive, that where adults who really know how to do it engage children in deep thinking and higher order thinking skills, if you will, and you can do that through language development. That's a real win, and I don't know, those teachers might have some ideas about that. But so what's the culture like? What's the climate right in a classroom? How do you build that positive climate? That's at least half of it, maybe more, about developing those relationships. And how do children learn how to interact together? And how do they learn how to use language together? I think that's a pre-reading skill that is essential that a lot of us don't have.
I think another thing that we've talked about for these centers is how important that the environment is. So the way the room is set up, how much language, how print rich is it? Are there center-based learning? That's a big, pre-K is the perfect time to really get kids used to that kind of center-based learning. So the environment plays a big role in this, as well as the relationships and the culture and the language they've talked about.
So we don't have all the program's not fully developed yet, and another thing that really excites me is getting those high-performing teachers engaged in this planning process. If you look at that planning team, with the best knowledge and research in the country, with the Peabody staff, with the other people who really know this, with our expertise, I think the opportunity to build the very best program is right with us, and I think we can do that between now and the fall. And what we don't have now across all of our sites and with all of our partners is consistency. So the opportunity to build in 75, 85 sites in this district is a standard of consistency and high expectation, and that's really important for the children that we presently serve, plus the ones that we'll add.
Great, thank you.
And I would actually like, Dr. Brandon, I'm going to give you an opportunity to make comments, but I would really like to hear from one or two of our teachers that are in the audience tonight to get your opinions as well. So, not to put anyone on the spot, but I know who you are, I will point you out. Dr. Brandon, and then we'll hear from our teacher. Dr. Brandon?
My name is Danielle
Hold on
Norton.
just one second. Let me get to Dr. Brandon first.
Well, I'm excited about this reform for Nashville. In every school that I've served, we've always had a waiting list for pre-K, and the need is great. It would be important for everyone to know that some students come into pre-K settings only hearing from their parents and their siblings 2 or 3 word commands. So vocabulary is very important. And we stress the prerequisites of learning initially, those things that will help them in following directions and simple steps as you lead into the learning. Social and emotional learning is very important. They have to have the trust in the teachers and the assistants. And by the way, will there be assistants in these classrooms?
Yes.
Okay, so all of that is important. I'm just excited about the opportunity, and I think it's great to have these 2 model centers. It will enable us to focus in on some important strategies, and so I think it's a wonderful opportunity.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
You wanted to ask a question, or you just wanted my opinion? So I'm trying to.
Well, I want your opinion because there may be questions later. Tell us your name and.
My name is Danielle Norton. I'm a pre-K teacher, obviously, at Buena Vista Enhanced Option School. I've been teaching for 6 years. I'm super excited about, it's funny, I walked in and I didn't know. We've been talking about planning something and making pre-K in Metro Nashville Public Schools a model for not only our state but our nation. I've been kind of following what's going on in San Antonio. They have a big pre-K program that they started this year, making it universal. So I always thought that we had an opportunity here to do that. So to actually hear the somewhat specifics. I know things are still forming. We're back there. You probably heard us talking and being excited. But a lot of us that teach pre-K, a lot of us either have, some of our sites have 4 or 5 teachers, which are great, so you can bounce ideas off of each other. There are a lot of sites that only have 1 pre-K teacher, and that's a very, sometimes lonely situation to be in because you don't have another colleague to bounce ideas off. Most obviously, our elementary school are so focused on K through 4 that sometimes we do get lost in translation because, number one, we aren't mandatory. So I understand about funding, and I understand about, Common Core and things of that nature, and making sure our kids are ready and testing and all of that, and we kind of do get lost. So for the opportunity to have a whole site where all it is pre-K is huge, because the best learning that we do is from each other. So we do have an opportunity at the beginning of the year to all come together to learn things, but that's only once a year. So you're the PD that is offered right now is almost non-existent, and we all still want to learn. So to just be able to have that opportunity in that environment to be able to learn from each other, to have the PD that we really need and request if we are struggling with, letter recognition. How do you do that? What does that look like? Somebody else that has been successful can talk to me, or if I'm having an issue, or if we're doing some science things, how do you create those experiments? All those different things are great. But I also like that Dr. Register and Ms. Brenda and Ms. Phyllis also talked about consistency as we are right now. There needs to be more consistency. We desperately need a universal curriculum. We desperately need a universal curriculum. It is huge. It is huge. You have too much inconsistency with that. So we do have some pre-K classrooms that do have a curriculum based on maybe studies that we have partnered with Vanderbilt, that we're able to still use those, the things that we learned and the manipulatives and things. But we also have sites that didn't have, for whatever reason, that opportunity, that are literally having to create their own curriculum. And I feel like if we don't have that first universal curriculum with what we have now, you can create this model school, but if it doesn't have consistency, what's the purpose? And you end up looking real silly and not having the opportunity to be a forefront, but being a failure. And I just don't want that to happen. So I'm excited. I really hope that you all approve this. I hope that we can get more money possibly from the city council, but we know how that goes. But this is a great thing, and I know that, once all the pre-K teachers, of some of y'all looking now at Channel 3, or when they start reading in the newspaper, everyone is going to be extremely excited, because we know that we are laying a foundation for social emotional skills, for academic skills, building families. I love that that family liaison is huge, because we are really creating the expectation of a parent, because a lot of parents, they just don't know what to do. And it's not that they don't want to know, it's just that nobody has told them. So that's a huge piece that we can create in the model classroom, of getting those parent workshops and having parents come in and not be afraid to come in and be with their child and learn while they're learning. Come in our classrooms and learn while you're learning, so you know what to do when you get home. So this is huge. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, don't go away. We may have questions. Do any board members have questions for the super excited Ms. Norton? I don't think we can do it right now.
All right.
I'll be glad to make a motion.
Any questions for Ms. Norton?
Well, I just wanted to mention the fact that you said once the parents go in and learn how to help their children, it helps the other siblings that come along as well.
Yes.
So.
Yes, I have several kids that I had my first year I had them, and now I have their siblings, and my parents already know what I expect. They already know actually more than what their older sibling did, because okay, so I need to get he or she doing this, and this, and they come in already good, versus what their sibling did, because they didn't know how to help them at home. And that's huge, is to create that expectation for the parents to from pre-K all the way through high school. They need to know how to do certain things and how to ask questions, how to do the best for your child. So we're laying that foundation not only for the student, but for our parents too.
Well, Ms. Norton, on behalf of the Board of Education, we are very, very excited and very proud of teachers like you and every teacher in this audience tonight for all that you do to prepare our kids for that next step. So thank you very, very much.
Appreciate y'all.
Thank you for coming up here.
I just wanted to add, at one point, we also had a program where parents could get their GEDs while working at a site like this. And they had to come in and work with their children, and it was called Parent and Child Time, PAT time. So
I think
something that can lead on
we've got a lot of
families,
possibilities, right.
help the entire family.
Absolutely. A lot of possibilities. Any other questions from board members? Mr. Hayes, do you have any other questions? Wow, that's awesome. That is
Madam
awesome.
Chair, that concludes my
Well, thank you all very much for the presentation. It was very well worth it. We definitely appreciate it. Thank you so much. And that moves us into the board chair's report, which I don't have one tonight, but I do have one late breaking announcement that I want to put on the table before we turn it over to Ms. Froke to dismiss. On Monday, January 20th, the Pearl Cone Choir will be singing at the MLK event on the convocation at Tennessee State University at the Gentry Center. The convocation will start at 11 a.m. The ceremonial march will start at 10:15 a.m., and that is to TSU Gentry's Complex from 28th and Jefferson. 10:30 a.m. is a pre-convocation, and again, 11 a.m. is a convocation. So anyone who is available, please go out and support our one of these days multi-award winning Pearl Cone High School Choir. They are fabulous. So if there are no other comments, Ms. Frogue?